Hey everyone, this is Bo. In today's video, we'll be doing a short walk around of my shop together. Be showing you how the tools are laid out, some of the thought that went into that layout, and as well, you can look inside my drawers. Anyway, just to get started here, the overall shop is 19 foot 3 inches long, so that would be from the garage door that's behind the camera to this wall behind me. The width of the garage, so this way, is going to be 23 foot 4 inches from drywall to drywall, and then the height is 9 foot 7 from floor to the drywalled ceiling with a large beam running behind the camera here. So why don't I go ahead and get the camera set up in one corner, and we'll kind of take a 360 spin around my shop. All right, so I figured I'd start on the northeast corner of my shop with some of the maybe something more basic, but it's going to be very important, right? It's going to be the electrical power for the shop. So what I have here is a sub panel that's getting fed from our main panel in the basement. That then houses all the electrical for the shop except for one outlet that was that's for the garage door opener that was already here, of course. So you can see the sub panel here in the corner. There's then external conduit that is run throughout the garage on the walls with outlets spaced everywhere along the walls. And then the light switch here is actually for all the lights in the shop. They're all hooked up to one circuit. So when I come to the garage, I can flip that on. Bam, lights. Speaking of lighting, I do have ceiling mounted LED fixtures throughout the garage. I think I counted 11 4-foot fixtures, one 2-foot fixture that's above my workbench, and then I have one leftover fluorescent fixture over by the garage door. So a lot of light in here, really bright. That's one of the things I really wanted in this shop compared to my last one was good lighting. One other thing to mention in this corner is the heater up here in the above me. This shop is insulated, so insulated exterior wall. Over there is an insulated exterior wall. My garage door is insulated, and then our house is connected to this wall here, so that's also not insulated but warm. So this little electric heater does a fantastic job of keeping the shop nice and warm and comfortable in the winter months. I live in the Chicago area, so it can get pretty cold, but this can keep up with the needs. I don't have anything in terms of an AC unit for the summer. I just kind of deal with it and bear it. I will add probably a dehumidifier in probably this summer if it gets really humid. We have one in our basement that I can probably borrow for a bit or just go buy another one because it can get pretty sticky in here and it's not great for tools and metal and things like that. And then what you can also see make out is another entry door to the garage, to the side access to our side yard where the garbage cans are stored, which is a huge space saver having them stored outside and inside the garage. Something else you can see behind me, clamp racks for some of my long pipe clamps, as well as my drill press and drill press table. We can play that game, what's in my drawers. Looks like tools to set the stop here. Got some hot glue gun, 4-arm forklifts. What else we got? Pretty much empty drawer. That's exciting. And then and then in the base here is a bunch of drill bits that I use on the drill press. So larger Forstner bits, hole saws, other drill bits. They're all down there. Plug cutter. And then over here you can see some of the other random storage too, like ladders and roller stands, garbage can, things like that. I think that pretty much does it for this side. One thing I will note, there is a clock up there. It does keep accurate time, but I don't know where I was going. I was going to make a joke about time moving very fast out here, but I didn't think of it beforehand, so I apologize for that awkwardness. Let's move the camera. All right, so making our way onto the east wall, you can make out that entry door that I showed in the last shot here to my right. Next up, more clamp storage. So it's a French cleat system with kind of some custom made holders to hang all my clamps. All the remaining clamps are my pipe clamps. You can see them kind of spread out here. Here's my bandsaw. It is a Riken 10325, a 14-inch bandsaw. I have modified the dust collection to bring in an extra port up underneath the throat plate of the bandsaw, just to help get more of that dust right at the source. One of the next upcoming projects for me is to replace the work light on this. If you can tell, it's not all that useful when it doesn't stay up. So I will be getting rid of that and putting something else on there. So if anyone has good ideas for how they replace the work light on their bandsaw with something more, useful, let me know. Leave it in the comments. I'd be happy to see what others have done and shamelessly steal your idea and make this more useful. To my left is a router table. The base I made a while back, and the top is a gypsum, kind of a router table system, I'll say. So the top and the fence is from gypsum, and then the lift as well is a gypsum lift. Got a big 3¼ horsepower Porter cable. Let's see, what type is that? That's the model 7518 in there. So plenty power for what I need it for. And then above it, we have a hanging cabinet, and this has got more router things in it. So I've got I've got all my router bits stored here on an angle. Hopefully you can make that out with that stupid door in the way. No, let me bring it a little closer. So here's the free hanging cabinet that was in the previous shot. You can see I've got all my router bits here stored just on an angled piece of plywood with, I like these little Rockler inserts. They hold 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch bits, so that's pretty clever. Smart move, Rockler. My insert plates, some of my round over bits, and then I got some of my other routers up here just hanging out for when I need them. Some edge guides up above. Don't really use them too often, but they're up there if I need them. And then inside the router table, just have the access door, and then a bunch of my my extra 1/4 inch router bits that I seem to break often enough. Tools for collets and the throat plate, and then down here is a bunch of accessories like coping sled, my mortising jig attachment, some other stuff down here. And this drawer is, I think, pretty much unused. Oh, there's some stuff in there. Rarely used drawer. There's not a lot in there that's useful. So panning over this way a little bit. So the next area of my shop is the wood storage. It's a 2x4 base with some plywood on top just to keep it elevated, just in case there's the garage floor ever gets wet, or if someday we do pull a car back in here in the snow and the winter and the muck. Don't want that getting into the wood. So it is elevated. It's very full right now. I've accumulated a lot of oak over the past 2 months, and it is now overflowing. But this is one of the nice things about having nearly a 10-foot ceiling, is I can store pretty tall pieces of lumber vertically. I do have some scrap bins over here on the right that are also overflowing with scrap. And then I do have a couple of sawhorses, and then my little bench I use in conjunction with this big piece of MDF for spraying, so I can spin it around and spray stuff. One thing you really can't see behind the lumber, there are these arms that are coming out of the wall from a kind of a joist that's put in the studs. That comes out and just tries to keep the lumber separated from falling over onto each other. So there are those arms in there. They're just buried with wood right now. So reposition the camera a bit so you can get a sense for the wall we just talked about with the bandsaw, router table, wood storage. And then here's, I wouldn't say the center of the shop, but the center of this portion of it is going to be my joiner. It's a 6-inch Grizzly G0814 that I've installed a helical cutter head on. And then I have a DeWalt, I think it's a 734 model, which has also been upgraded with a helical cutter head. I went back and forth between just buying a new planer altogether and upgrading with a helical head. This one served me just fine over the past 4 or 5 years, so I updated with the head instead of buying a brand new one. I will say that a 6-inch joiner is probably going to be my next replacement tool. I'll be going to an 8-inch, finding that the 6-inch joiner width with the rabbiting ledge is somewhat limiting on how wide of lumber I can pass through it. If it didn't have the rabbiting ledge there, I could, I could just overhang material and run it across, but that does get in the way and kind of drives me crazy. So probably get an 8-inch here in the future, whenever. One thing you can see right in the middle of the frame is the dust collection drop for these two tools. I have a 6-inch blast gate and hose going down to my joiner, and then a 4-inch hose and blast gate going to my planer. One thing I didn't mention before is that the dust collection is up overhead, and you can probably just make out the drop for the bandsaw and the router table over here. So both these drops go up, connect, and head over that way, which we'll get to here in a moment. One other thing you probably make out in the background on the garage door is a system to hang the tracks and the parallel, or not parallel, the edge clamp, the bore edge clamp over there, just to keep them up and out of the way. They used to be over here by the door to the house. Kept knocking them over. They're on screws. Didn't work all that well, but that works pretty slick having them over there. So this clamp system on my garage door, so I had a question on it. It's really nothing fancy. It's 2 pieces of plywood, of 1/2-inch plywood, that have been mounted to the structure of the garage door. And then what I've done is, I'll bring you over to the side here. So might be able to make it out, but you can see there's some shims or spacers in here, very thin 1/4-inch spacers that are just wide enough to accept the track. And then the, I don't know what you call this, the middle rib of the track sits on top of the piece of plywood, and then these little clamps just kind of add some tension to hold it in place. Like I said, nothing fancy. Screws, brad nails, and then put some inserts, some threaded inserts in the piece of plywood so I could have these little clamp jobbers in there. Just loosen these up, and out she comes. When you're done, goes back in there. Clamp back in place, nice and sturdy. So when you raise the garage door, it doesn't fall out. Important. So I'm gonna spin the camera away from the garage door and we'll go to the other corner of my shop. Okay, so as we move around the shop here, we're now, my garage door is on the south end. This would be the west wall of the garage. And the first thing you can see in the background is my dust collector. It is an Oneida V3500, 3 horsepower motor, and a 30-some gallon bin that you can't see because it's on the ground behind my drum sander. The shop is plumbed with rigid 6-inch ducting all the way around. So we were just talking about the drops for the for the router table and bandsaw. That is up overhead on a 6-inch line. You can see here right out of the dust collector is a Y, one going to a vertical drop going down. That is for my table saw, and then that run going up will feed my miter saw station, and like I mentioned, go across the ceiling to do the bandsaw, planer, joiner, those. In the foreground, have the Supermax 1938 drum sander. I do have some build videos on building the cabinet for this, as well as installing the drum sander and setting it up. So I'll put a link to the description in those if you're interested. One thing to note is once I start a project and get the wood out of the wood storage, which is behind the camera here, I'll kind of lay it out, rough mark all my material, get that set up. Then the drum sander essentially moves from here over to in front of the wood pile, where it's kind of a dead zone over there for material. So that allows me just full access to my assembly table, so it just kind of hangs out over here. Speaking of assembly table, so here is my outfeed / assembly table. I do have a build video on this as well that I can leave a link to. If you want to see what's in my drawers, here we go. We've got some woodpecker's corner clamps. These things are pretty useful actually when you're working by yourself. Got some other corner clamps, air hose, my little thing to support my spray gun when I'm spraying. There's a random piece of 2.5 inch hose for dust collection back here. Some knobs, some more air compressor related stuff, tape measure. Down below, which you might have a hard time making out, is an open cavity that's got my air compressor, California Air Tools 4610 AC, which is awesome because it is super quiet. And then a small shop vac, which frankly doesn't get used in the shop. It actually gets used to help clean out vehicles and clean up all that gunk that gets in there after the winter. One other thing to note in the corner back there is kind of just stuff. So you have the filter for the dust collector that I have to keep, probably 10 inches, 8 to 10 inches of space away from to let air come out. But back there are some rigid insulation panels for cutting down sheet goods, so I can throw that in the floor and cut them down, as well as a very large dust collection hose, which allows me to clean up the shop with the dust collector, and then some random extension cords. So as we maybe move to the right a little bit here, I'll touch on the big miter saw station in the background, as well as my table saw. So moving on to the rest of the east wall is my miter saw station. I think I have a three video build series documenting that. I can put a link to the description in the comments for that as well. Ton of storage back there, as you can see, as well as a functional miter saw station. To my right, table saw. It is a rigid, I want to say 3450, but don't quote me on that. I can't remember exactly the model. But I think I bought it 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. Since then, I've added different side tables to it. The stamped ones weren't very flat and wouldn't allow me to get them very true to the cast iron, so made new ones out of melamine, wrapped them in hardwood, mounted them. That's really been the only modification to this. Other than that, it's stock. It's worked fine. It's not the greatest saw, not a terrible saw. It works good. I did add an IVAC switch here. You might not be able to see it in the video, but what that controls is a blast gate over my head that allows me to have some overhead dust collection on my table saw. This works pretty well, other than when I set up the dust collection, I kind of missed where I wanted it, and so it's off to the right side, and this dust collection hose kind of has to come up and over the blade and kind of get in my way. So yeah, I wish it was farther over to the left. It could come down this side since I don't stand over here as much. Anyway, it works good. Table saw, of course, is notorious for making dust off the blade, so having that there helps a little bit. One thing you can't make out in the camera, and that's okay. There is a bank of drawers underneath the right-hand side wing here. 3 drawers just have, throat plates and random tools. It's got more push sticks and feather boards, and then the very bottom drawer is our blades, and what else is down here? Pretty much it. Blades and another feather boards down the bottom. Anything else about this wall? One thing, let's see if you can make that out. One thing you might not be able to make out in the video, but it is up here, is a jet air filter. One of the recirc filters up here, and as well as there's a small LED light mounted at the bottom of it with magnets. That does it for this wall. We will pan over and do the last corner here, and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the last corner and section of the shop. This would be the northwest corner. Yeah. You can see here on the far left, behind the boom arm, is sandpaper storage and some of my other sanders. Got a belt sander and a small random orbital. got my boom arm here that can swing over the workbench, and you know, just keep the hose and electrical up out of the way, so it's not getting caught in the workbench and not getting in my way as I'm working. So I have that in the corner here. Right below it is a rigid oscillating belt and spindle sander, which of course is a time saver when you're doing things that require that instead of doing it by hand, which is great. And below that, just 3 drawers. If you want to know what's in my drawers here, we've got some contour sanding things. We got belts for the belt sander. We've got some random pieces of sandpaper that I was too lazy to put back. Second drawer's got some rags in there, and that's pretty much it. And the bottom drawer I think is empty in this one. Oh no, it doesn't. It has my biscuit joiner. The bottom one has my biscuit joiner. In this corner, once again, kind of a catch-all area for stuff and junk. We've got a couple of floor jacks, a creeper, leaf blower, got a small step stool, and then some other taller stuff back here, like another roller stand, one of the Bora centipede tables, and then some other random junk. Shouldn't call it junk. Stuff I use, but not that often. So next up, got some chargers mounted on a piece of plywood here that's hanging on the wall. Got this 40-volt Ryobi batteries for some of the lawn tools and the leaf blower. And then I have my batteries for my drills up there. You can see the boom arm dust collector kind of runs down here into a flex hose, which then goes into this cabinet that's behind here. This cabinet houses a shop vac. This one, my old shop vac, after many years of faithful use, had died. So I have a rigid shop vac in here now, which has an IVAC switch out here. And so whether I can use the remote, I have one remote here, one remote by the miter saw, so I can hit that and turn it on. As well, then the boom arm has one of the kind of the auto start switches on, so if I'm using a sander or whatever, it will automatically turn on when that turns on. On this left drawer, this used to be where I had a small dust deputy. I found the lid on my bucket ripped, and then I found I really don't need it anymore. With my large dust collector doing all the big tools, this is really just fine dust coming off of sanders, and then occasionally the what's what I'm looking for? You know, track saw. That's it, track saw or circular saw. So right now it's really just kind of random dust collection, 2-inch, 1/4 inch dust collection in there, like hoses and connectors and extension rods for the shop vac. On top of this cabinet, it's another work surface. You know, I like having my sharpening tools kind of out and accessible at all times. So if I get a slightly dulled chisel or a plane blade, there's no reason why I can't just come over here and give it a quick tune-up. So I've got diamond stones as well as a leather strop, and then this kind of this board with a bunch of magnets in it that I can pull the diamond plate out and stick it on there so I can hang things off the edge. On top of here, you know, you see some other kind of commonly used tools: side cutters, screwdrivers, small tape measure, hearing protection, eye protection, things like that. Inside this cabinet is a lot of my hand tools. So you can see chisels, planes, some measuring devices, card scrapers, what's over here? Some other layout tools, shims, measuring stuff, hand saws. There's some files and rasps here. There's also some in this little bucket. Yeah, common hand tool stuff. Nothing crazy. And then over here on the wall, hose, not really woodworking related, but it's there. And then some level and straight edge storage here over by the door. And last, workbench. So this is kind of a traditional Rubo workbench, not a split top, but one continuous top. It is, can't remember, I think it's 30 inches. Yeah, 29 3/4 inches wide, or whatever, deep, and then 75 inches long. And I have mine set at 35 inches high. You can see probably from the camera view over there, there's some T-track that runs along this edge that I use for mounting these storage boxes, as well as for I have a mortising kind of jig that I use that attaches that as well. On this side I have a traditional leg vise, as well as a sliding dead man. And then I have a wagon vise here on the far right, which I am going to be modifying a little bit to get some type of wheel attachment to help that move in and out quicker and not stick above my workbench, because right now it's like right there. So I need to do something with that to make that a little more user friendly. Down below the workbench, I think you might be able to just make it out in the camera. There is a cabinet under there for storage, so I have not a whole lot stored on this side, but on this side I have a jigsaw in the top drawer, and then the bottom drawer has my circular saw and track saw. I think that is pretty much it for the shop. I realized one item I didn't touch on was the cabinet under my planer. So let me pull you away for that, and then we'll wrap it up here. So cabinet that's on my planer, makes it mobile, of course, casters. This has some of my sanding stuff, so a couple of the Festool sanders in here, just on some pull-out slides, and easy access to them. One thing I didn't know as well, got a Festool dust collector over here, which I don't use in the shop very often. I actually use it more for house projects and like mobile projects, because it is so mobile and works so well. But I also use it if I'm cutting down large sheet goods on the floor here. I'll unlock the casters, excuse me, move the planer and joiner back out of the way a bit, and then set up a cutting station over here with that and a track saw or circular saw. So I think that wraps up the tour of the BeauBilt workshop. If you have any questions on what I covered, or you want more detailed information, leave a comment, and I can try to get to it, maybe with another video, or maybe I have a post on my website about it that I can direct you to. Just let me know. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good one. In the foreground, I guess, is my drum sander. Is my drum sander. Boy, I'm fumbling through this one a little bit, huh? Ugh. Okay, anyway, right corner, or no, that's not right. What wall is this? That's south. It's north. It's east. Okay, got it. Hands. Stupid hands.